And we're back again, as I always say. Not that we really left, because we do this like every week.
We do this. We do this every week. Too long. But this is week what? This is week. I think this is week 80.
Week 80?
Yeah.
Wow, doing this for 80 weeks.
Yeah, 80 weeks straight.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Just cue the intro. Hello, guys. T.L.B.P Brothers Podcast, also known as T.L.B.P. I'm Victor.
And I'm Adrian.
And we brought a guest.
Yeah, I brought a guest. A very old friend of mine. Actually, we go so far back. It's like I don't even know anymore. Like it's been a lifetime. So, if you want to introduce yourself, I mean, give people the rundown.
Oh, sure. Yes. So I'm Stefan. I met Adrian when I was in kindergarten. We were really good friends up until grade 2, and then I switched schools to try an alternative program, then came back to our elementary school where I went to the French program and Adrian was in the English program. So we weren't really like close after that, but we knew each other for a good chunk of my childhood.
Yeah, for sure. Like, actually, I tell all my friends, like, because I remember you were like the smartest kid in like all the classes. So whenever people like tell me, yeah, when growing up, I had like this gifted friend, and like all these people are like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, my best friend was like gifted, and all. I remember we would do things, and you would just sit there. Like, I remember when we were in grade 2. I remember there would be moments where you would just be sitting there in complete boredom, like, because no, it's true though. Like, I remember because we used to sit next to each other. And I remember there'd be days where you would just be like with your head down, like half the class. And I'd be like, what's going? You see what she's doing. And she's like, like whatever. Little things like that I'll never forget. But do you remember when we were in grade 2? I don't know if you remember this. I told the story like a couple of weeks ago on the podcast.
Sure.
How we would collect water bottles on our desks.
Yes.
And then we got into this crazy water bottle fight one time. Do you remember?
I don't remember the fight. I remember collecting the bottle caps. I had like a collection of bottle caps for a very long time. And I think I had like about 100 bottle caps just inside my desk.
I think we should preface that like we were in grade 2, so we were like 6 or 7 years old at the time.
Yeah.
But, like, there are so many things like that I'll remember. Like every now and then, I'll remember. Like, the only reason I know which way is north, south, east, or west is because of that classroom. I learned it in that classroom, and I remember that the sun was facing the windows in that classroom. So whenever I'm like trying to figure it out, I'll turn away from the sun and picture myself in that classroom.
Oh damn!
Figure it out, but it's like it's crazy, like little things like that. But I remember there was this song that we learned which it was north, south, east. I can't remember the song, but like there's so many things in that class, and then I remember what. That's fine. I remember halfway through the school year, because we used to sit next to each other, but then halfway through school year, I got moved to the back, to the corner right next to the teacher's desk. And I remember this other student of ours who, another student in that class, who actually is a big YouTuber now, but we used to sit next to each other. And then one day, I can't remember why, but we switched desks. We switched desks without switching desks.
Mm.
I took everything out of my desk and put it in his desk, and he took everything out of his desk and put it in my desk. Just for the sake of it.
I never understood that when teachers would like make students move around. Like, why don't just lift up your desk, put it over there instead of switching everything out?
No. We didn't do that. We would actually like pick up the desk and move it. But like, I don't know why. He's like, I want to lean against like the wall or whatever. So we took everything out because we weren't allowed to switch the desk. So he's like, why don't you just keep my desk? I'll just take everything out and you put everything in my desk. I'll put everything in your desk.
Who was this?
I'll say a name, but I'll bleep it out later.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that. Like, for some reason, like that was the only name I could think of at this moment. But
yeah,
damn.
Yeah, we sat next to each other. I think the last 2 months of school. And that was what we were doing, just switching stuff in our desks.
Okay. I don't remember that part.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, that's more for me. But yeah, stuff like that. But when I mean, I guess so. What have you been up to now?
Yeah, I guess I should have said that in my introduction, but
I mean,
yeah, you can add it now. So right now I'm finishing my master's in software engineering in France.
smartest guy I know.
So I'm living in the south of France, like on the south west, in a town called Toulouse. It's like one of the biggest cities outside of Paris.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so that's where I've been for the past few years. Before that, I studied for 2 years in another city in France called Grenoble, and before that, I mean, I was in a different school. That's when we kind of split our ways. I went to moved neighborhoods, and then went to a different high school, different
Yeah.
elementary school.
Wow, that's France. How did that happen? It's like I'm in Canada. Like, let's.
Yeah, I guess I'll go back. I guess I was in high school, and I was getting like all the best grades and all stuff like that, but I wasn't really happy because I didn't have any life outside of school. So at this point in high school, I felt like a lot of people in high school kind of like awkward and okay, well, getting grades is easy, so I'll focus all my energy on that, and then making friends is difficult, so I won't do that. And when I was like by the end of high school, I was like, so now I have two opportunities. It's really good ones. I had the opportunity to study at McGill and the opportunity to study at the University of Ottawa. I had the largest scholarship, so like 30 grand. And at that point, I knew that if I chose those two options, which were really good for my career, I would have to study a lot to maintain that scholarship or to get like past the classes at McGill, and also like have to work part-time in Montreal to pay for that. Yeah. And in France, actually, the studies were free. Like I pay about $300 a year for my studies. And actually this year I didn't pay anything for my studies because I'm working and my company paid for me. So I said, well, if it's free,
Take notes. You gotta get what he's doing. You see that? Take notes. I'm in crippling debt right now.
So it was free, and I thought, okay, I'll just move to a country where like university is free and try to get out of my comfort zone, meet people, live my life, not just in class and getting grades and all that stuff, but like meet people and travel. And that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years in France. And France, because I could speak French, and like most of your studies, you have to do them in the language of the country where you study. So if you're in Germany, you have to speak German. If you're, I don't know, in Norway, you have to speak Norwegian. And I spoke French already from the French immersion program. So it was like either France or Belgium.
Oh, wow. I wish my story was that exciting. My story isn't as.
Yeah, tell me what have you been up to? I don't know if it's necessary for the podcast, but
kind of talk about it, but not really. So I guess this is the first time after 80 episodes, I'm gonna reveal what I've done with my life the last
like
5
Batman.
years. I mean, it's only been like a year and a couple of weeks. So I had the complete opposite experience of high school. Mm-hmm. I was so focused on my friends, I didn't care about my grades.
Yeah.
So when I got out of high school, well, actually, when I was graduating from high school, I remember I had like 60s and like I think I had like 1A on my entire transcript. And I'm like, what am I gonna do with my life? And I had a lot of conversations with people, and a lot of people, but I was taking like all the sciences and all the maths and all that stuff. But everyone's like the grade isn't high enough for you to, like. I had a guidance counselor. She's like, you should go and become a doctor, because she's like, you're good at all this stuff. You're just not putting in the work ethic to get to where you should be. Mm. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do like another year of high school if that's what you're suggesting to like raise the grade of everything.
Yeah.
And then I had lots of conversations, and then my dad's like, why don't you, because I always help him out with the car whenever something wrong with the car. I'd always help him out. So he's like, why don't you become a mechanic? And I go, that's an interesting idea. Let me look into that. And I start looking into it, and I really start to like the idea of doing that.
Okay.
And then I had a friend who was talking. Well, a close friend of ours, his son took web development, and I had a lot of conversations with him too. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I should have gone into programming, and I would have. He's like, I'd have a lot more job opportunities. And I go,
Okay.
interesting. And then I looked into that, and then I fell in love with that. And I'm like, okay, like my inner nerd like geeked out insanely. I was like, this is amazing. I should take this.
Yeah.
So I did the next best thing. I applied to both and waited who would send first the acceptance letter. I gambled it on fate. I'm like, whoever sends it, and you're not going to believe what happened. They both came the exact same day at the exact same time. I got accepted to both programs at the exact same time. And I was like, now what do I do? I ended up going with programming, and I took a year of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that program was intense. You carried 12 classes, 6 theory, 6 lab classes. It was like something like 62 hours of class time a week.
Mm-hmm.
And you had like whatever was left of your week to study and do your assignments. So like you were dying, like quite literally dying. Like it was, I've never worked so hard in my entire life. I remember at the last semester, because I dropped out of it the first year. By second semester, I was so tired and so drained. Like I didn't even know. I'm like I'm gonna get 4 months off, and I'm gonna have to do this all over again. Like I'm like, is this really how I want to live my life? And then I remember telling a friend of mine, well, the other thing too is like I'm dyslexic, so like I have a hard time reading. So reading thousands of lines of code every day isn't exactly my forte.
Okay.
Because I'm dyslexic. But the biggest issue wasn't that at hand. It was like I have to be realistic with myself and with an employer, right? Like if I go into this field doing this job, will I be capable to do it like a normal person would? And I'm like, I know for a fact I won't be capable of doing it like a normal person. Because at that point, in order to get assignments done, I was sleeping something like 3 hours a night in order to take care of everything and make sure nothing was wrong, making sure every line of code was right. Like it was insane. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was loving the program. Like every little thing, I was like, that's so cool. And then like we did this assignment where we had to code a calculator out, and like I have this really funny story with another friend of mine from that program who's been on the podcast, where he yelled at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" Because I was like finishing the assignment, and he was sitting there saying, "What are you doing?" And this guy sitting next to me didn't get what we were doing. He's like, "You know what? Forget it." And he closed his computer, and we never saw him again. He literally closed his computer, got up, and walked out, and we never saw him again.
He thought your friend was yelling at him.
Yeah, it was like.
Wait, I didn't get what happened there.
So we were in this class, and we had to code out the program for a calculator.
Okay.
And I was like, I had already figured it out, but my friend who was sitting behind me was like already done, and he was just joking around. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" But he said it like in an aggressive tone.
To you?
The guy, yeah. But the guy sitting next to me thought he was talking to him, and he goes, "You know what? Forget it." And he slammed his computer closed and just walked out.
Because he was so scared of the other guy asking him
No,
what he
because he's like, I'm an idiot. Clearly, I don't know what's going on. He just walked out, and we never saw him again.
Oh damn!
Genuinely, like we think because of us he dropped the program.
That sucks. Kind of.
Come on, like we were just joking around.
Yeah, I guess it's also how he reacted, but not everyone is for programming. Although like everyone wants to be, because there's so many jobs right now. Well, I don't know right now, but in general, there are so many jobs when the economy is going well. That a lot of people want to do programming, and I'm with colleagues that have studied everything other than programming and then switched to programming right now in my company. So, but not everyone is built for it, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I had a professor. He was a Java professor. He put it like this. He's like, either you get it or you don't get it. There's no in between. He's like, the in between. There's no in between. Either
it's very binary.
Yeah, he's like, either you get it or you don't get it. If you don't get it, get out now. And I kid you not, we had this one class called networking. That class was a filter course. It was insane. I had like 3 assignments sometimes from that one course. It was crazy. We were 270 something people in that class. By the end of the class, I barely passed that class, and everybody else in that class barely passed that class. But there was like 25 of us left in that class when it was all said and done, because everyone just kept dropping it.
And where was this?
I went to Algonquin.
Okay, and You dropped out after the first year, or you continued?
Yeah.
I didn't
Well,
get
I dropped out after the first year, and then I did what I call soul searching.
it.
Actually, I went to the prom coordinator, and the prom coordinator, he really wanted me to stay. I mean, like he fought for me. He was
Hmm.
like, look, because in Algonquin, the way it works is you have to get it signed off by the
Hmm.
prom coordinator that you're dropping out. So you have to go and physically meet with a person. You can't just click a button on your computer. You're like,
Hmm.
I'm done. You have to
Yeah.
actually go meet the person. So I went to go
Hmm.
talk, and he told me, look, you're the first student I know of with dyslexia to take this program. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah. He's like, you're the first person I hear of. He's like, look, I can talk to the college. He's like, we can arrange for you to have a lighter course load. We can arrange for you, still stay full time, so that way your funding doesn't go away. Like, all this stuff, because like, it's a requirement. You have to be
Yep.
full time in order to be paid, like the college to like to give you a loan in order to stay in school.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, but I mean, but again, like I was being realistic with myself and like with a future employer. I'm like, this isn't fair to me and it isn't fair to them, right? Like if I go into the workforce, this isn't fair to anybody, right? We're both losing at the end of the day. I'd be
Yeah.
miserable, and my employer would be miserable with me because I can't keep up with the work demand, right? So after that, he's like, okay, and then I left the. He signed it like very hesitantly, and he's like, you know what? We offer career counseling services here at the college.
Hmm.
Why don't you go look into that? And I go, what? He's like, you already paid for it anyway. And I go, I already paid for it. What are you talking about? I never signed no forms. And he's like, it's part of your tuition. He's like, you can go to it up to 6 months after you leave the college.
Oh, that's nice.
And I was like, I had no idea this existed. Like, I didn't even know this was a thing. And he's like, yeah. He's like, so go. He's like, and then I set up an appointment with this person. Well, with like one of the career counselors, and she had me do all these personality type tests, and I don't know, I did like 6 or 7 of them, and like career possible jobs. But it would be like, and every single time it would be like the most awkward thing. It'd be like plumber, what is it, like plumber, doctor, social worker, and then this other time I got rabbi, not even Jewish. We are a rabbi. What was it? Daycare worker, social worker. But
Hmm.
every single time, Stefan, I got social worker. Every single time. It would be in
Damn.
3. And she's like, I've never had this happen before. Like, she's like, genuinely, I've never seen this happen before. She's like, you should, not that I'm telling you to go do it. She's like, but look into it. So you know what I did?
What?
I didn't look into it. I just applied. And then I got whitelisted, and then because the program was full,
Yeah.
so I didn't get accepted. But then I was talking with their coordinator, and she's like, "Take this 1 year program." She's like, "I will accept you, no questions asked." She's like, "It doesn't even matter if you pass the classes. Just take it for now." She's like, "That way, the government sees that you're still in school, and you don't lose your funding." And I was like, "Okay." So I took that program for a year, and then halfway through the second semester, I got accepted into the social working program. So I
Yep.
just stopped caring, and then I got into the social working program, and then and yeah, and I actually I should have graduated on Tuesday, but because of COVID, here I am sitting.
Do you get your degree already? It's just that you don't have the ceremony, or do you have to wait to pass some exams in person, or how does it work?
No, I just have to get my diploma because
Okay.
it's a diploma, so I have to wait for that to come. I don't know if it's gonna come in the mail. I don't know. I don't know anything. Nobody knows anything. I'm just kind of like in this weird limbo state because usually you get it when you graduate. Like they have a ceremony and they give you your diploma, but because there's no ceremony, I don't know what no one in my program currently knows what's going on. So, and I'm sure that the college is like having a heart attack because they have to rent out all the spaces, and like they rent out like the school, where that, like,
Mm.
that's where they do it.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
rent that out in order to have a graduation. So I was like, so like I'm sure they're figuring that out, but for now, like as far as I'm concerned, I'm done the program and I'm certified to do it.
Can you get the diploma? Like go in person and say, "Hey, I need it. I need to find a job right now." Or
Well, here's the thing. I don't know. I'm sure it. Like I've been emailing people and stuff, and
Mhm.
like no one's responded, and I'm sure that they're gonna send out like this giant mass email, like a notification email to like the whole program. Hey, look,
Mhm.
this is the rundown. This is what we're dealing with right now. Like, we're just trying to figure it out. Like, the college itself is struggling to find a way to start school in September. And what they've concluded is we're going to be full online. Like, we're going to be full online, and, like, only the classes that are, like, that you physically have to be there to learn something. Like, if you're nursing, for example, you have to learn how to do an injection. Well, we're going to have to do it, but with very limited numbers in the classes. Like, that's what the college is looking at right now. So I can't imagine how, because this program, for example, my program that I took, it's social service worker. It's not social worker, but it's social service worker. And it's very, very personally driven. Like, you don't learn off theory, you learn off a story that a professor told you of something they lived in the field.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's very, very like that. I'm like, how do you go from teaching like that for years, then switching over to online?
Well, couldn't he tell you the same story if he did a lecture live on Skype or something like that?
That's the thing, right? And the problem is that a lot of these people are a lot older. Like, I mean, a lot older, and they don't know how to use tech. Like, I had to show a teacher how to, like, use a projector in the program, man. Like, it was insane. And this one time, someone found out I was in programming because I ran into another friend of mine, and he's like, "Hey, I'm using this and, like, all my friends are like, "You took programming?" And I go, "Yeah," and they're like, "Why didn't you tell us?" And I was like, well, it didn't seem important. Like, that's my
dealing with people.
Yeah, like, no, and then professors started finding out, and, like, their general reaction was, "What are you doing here?" Like, the running joke in that program is you don't need math.
Yeah, it's completely opposite. You're either working with, like, things, and you can be like a programmer or even like a mechanic, but programmer is even more extreme. You're, like, really just thinking about everything very logically.
Yeah.
And when you're working with people, it's like you're thinking very emotionally and thinking in a completely different way.
For sure, yeah. But I remember a professor telling me, because we had to write a paper on, like, a scenario, and he's like, we need more people like you in this field. And I go, why? It's like, because you're a logical thinker. And I go, I'm like, that's great. And then he's like, I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, we don't have anybody like this in the field.
That is true.
Because they're all going to the maths and sciences. No one's coming to social, like, but it was, I remember this one time we were, like, a professor was trying to figure out, like, in how many, like, hours we had to do for something. And it was, like, 7 times something. And I literally walked into the room and I yelled out the number. I think it was, like, the answer was, like, 42 or something like that. And everyone turned and looked at me. They're like, how did you do that? Because they're all pulling out their phones to do it. And I go, seriously, guys? Like, did you not go to elementary school and learn your times? Like, what is it? It was, like, stuff like that I was like, it was crazy. And they're like, no, you opened up your calculator. You had to have. I'm like, I literally just walked in through the door. What are you talking about? But, like, and actually, even, like, because I had to do a placement at an organization where they hired social workers to get experience and stuff. It's kind of like co-op, but they don't pay you. And they, it'd be funny because, like, they'd be, like, crunching numbers or whatever. And this lady would be like, let me get a calculator. And I remember I walked by and I heard the number and I did the math in my head and I just told her the number. She's like, oh, thanks. How did you? Like, everybody is just like, it's just, like, the most bizarre reactions when you're, like, good at math for some reason and you're in this field. It's just so polarizing to some people. They're like, I don't understand. Like, why didn't you go do something else? Because
it's really interesting. Yeah. Have you are you going to work in a special type of, like, social work? Like, what do you kind of see for yourself in that field? Which kind of people do you want to work with?
Well, currently, because I speak Spanish, I've been leaning more towards the immigration side of things, because, like, of course, like, I speak Spanish and, like, I'm fluent in it and I can read it and I can sort of write it. But, like, because of that, I'm like, that would be fairly useful, in that field, because, newcomers coming to Canada, and there's, like, a ton of people trying to get into Canada all the time, and a lot of them happen to be Spanish speakers, because, I mean, everywhere below Canada speaks Spanish. Quite literally everywhere in North America below Canada speaks Spanish. Like, when you think about it like that, it's like, wow. And then, actually, this one time, I had a professor who was asking us if we were bilingual. And, like, all the French immersion kids put their hands up. And then he turns and looks at me. He's like, Adrian, you're bilingual, and don't let anyone ever tell you you're not bilingual. And I was just like, because he had seen me speak Spanish before.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, oh, okay. But he's like, I know in Canada you don't qualify. And he's like, and personally, I think that's wrong. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's great. And that was like, but it was like really, it was kind of awkward because he called me out on it. Like, you're not, it's like, you are, and like, don't think that. And then he was telling me of a student who when he was working at a high school, who he was trying to get him into the IB program. I'm sure you've heard of the IB program. It's like a I guess
international baccalaureate.
Yeah, but it's more like I guess they call it like the gifted program kind of thing.
Yeah, it's because they're doing like this program that's so hard it qualifies in every single country.
Yeah.
Even like maybe like the maths in France are harder than the maths in Canada, but if you do like IB maths, you qualify for the maths in France, I guess. I think that's the kind of logic of it.
Oh no, for sure, yeah. But he was telling us how he was trying to get this kid into the program, and the kid was from some country in Africa, and the teacher was telling him, well, he's not. The principal of the school was telling him, well, he's not that smart, and his response was, he speaks 15 languages. What IB student do you know that you have in your program currently that speaks 15 languages? He's like, and the principal was dumbfounded. Because not even he only spoke English. And I was like, he's like, so you gotta speak up for yourself. He's like, you can't let people tell you that you're not capable of something when you are. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Like, no worries. I got you. But it's like, it's really bizarre to be in those kinds of situations. And I'm sure you've lived certain situations like that too, right? Like, cause I'm sure like, because of your English, right? People are like, oh, his English is really good and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I've always spoken, Serbian. And then actually when we met, I guess I don't know if you remember what my English was like, but I was still learning English. Like I moved to Canada when I was 4 years old, started kindergarten when I was 5, started learning English, learned it fairly quickly.
Yeah.
But still there was like some times where I didn't understand a certain word or I had to go to ESL, until grade 2. I did it for all of grade 1.
I remember in grade 1. Yeah, you had a bit of an accent.
Okay.
I very faintly remember you had an accent, but by grade 2 it was more or less gone.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I don't remember that. And then,
for me anyway, I think you picked it up really fast.
Yeah, I remember we were like sitting in ESL and singing songs. But I think languages, of all the things like I know, languages came the most easily to me in life, and that's why I also did like French immersion, and then after actually in high school did Spanish, and then. But I think you're right that speaking languages is a big deal, like really important. And in Canada, we always associate bilingual with English and French. Yeah. But you can know 2 languages like English and Japanese and be bilingual. And a lot of immigrants or people who are like from immigrant families in Canada are naturally bilingual, and that is a huge asset. And you just need to, especially like Spanish, like you're close to the U.S. In the U.S. they're looking for people who can speak English and Spanish all the time.
For sure, no, and actually, it's really funny. At the placement I was put in, the director and my supervisor, they both spoke Spanish, and there was 2 other people who spoke Spanish as well. And this one time, all like 6 of us had a meeting, and someone made a joke in Spanish, and the rest of the meeting was in Spanish. But I was like, never in my life have I lived something like, we were having like a board meeting in Spanish. Yeah. About, like, it was the most bizarre thing in my life.
People said Spanish wouldn't help.
No, it was so bizarre. And then all of a sudden, like, my supervisor like clicked. She's like, "Hey, did you understand any of us? Like anything? Because I'm born here, right?" So like, she's just like making sure I'm like, and then I switch in Spanish and I go, "Yeah, of course, I understood everything." And they all go, "Oh, so you do speak Spanish?" Because there's a big issue here in Canada where a lot of like first generation Latino kids aren't learning Spanish. They can understand it, but they don't speak it.
Okay.
So, and both my supervisor and the director have kids like this.
That's really a shame, and I think the problem is like parents not speaking to their kids in their like.
it's the fact that we don't practice it amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, my parents have friends who are also Spanish speaking people, but between the kids, we only speak English to each other. Like, we don't
Okay.
practice with like, if we were to practice with each other, we would have that. But with me, like, for example, I talk to a lot of adults who speak Spanish. And that's why it's gotten, like, deeply seated in my brain. I have, like, and learning slangs from different languages, from
Right.
different countries is insane.
Oh,
I
never
mean,
ending.
you think slang is, like, the most basic thing, but Mexico has its own slang, like, Chile has its own slang, Argentina, all of them have their own slang. And it's like, it's gone to a point now where it's almost like its own little dialect.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with all of them. And the other issue I've run into too is, like, where I'll be like, say someone comes in from Argentina, I don't have a proper Spanish accent. So if someone talks to me in Spanish, I'll instantly stick to their accent. Like, it'll take like 10-15 minutes, and then I sound like that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, exactly like that person. And my dad, this one time, actually, when I was in high school, there was this girl from Colombia I talked to a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And she would be, all of a sudden, I'd come home, my dad's like, who you been talking to today? I'm like, why? It's like, you sound like a Colombian. So, like, stuff like that, like, I've had to live with. And then, but the thing is because my accent is very neutral, there's no ethnicity to my Spanish. It's very neutral sounding. So because,
it's like people have a really hard time finding where our Spanish is from, because our mom is from Mexico, and then our dad's from El Salvador, and then we have a lot of other friends from, like, Venezuela and, like, all over, so our accents, like, everywhere.
And the other thing too is, like, we'll use certain phrases interchangeably. So, like, there's, like, certain words that only Mexicans say, and then there's certain words that only Salvadorians say, but we'll use both of them interchangeably. So when I'm having conversations, people are like, where are you from? Like, I have no, like, I don't I can't
understand.
I can't pinpoint your Spanish, bro. Like, where are you from?
It's like my French in France, because in Canada I learned, like, a very neutral French, because I was in the English speaking part learning French, so I wasn't speaking French with my, like, friends, and you only learned it in the class. So I had this kind of, like, mildly Quebecois accent, but very neutral. You know, and Quebecois French is completely different in the sound from French from France. And so when I went to France, I kind of, after a few months, I lost all my slight Quebecois French, and it shifted more towards, like, French from France. And now when I meet people, they tell me, like, are you from Switzerland? Because I have this kind of English Germanic accent in my French that it's French from France, but with an accent from, like, the English speaking, like from an English speaker.
Yeah.
So and it's really good. Like my French has advanced obviously over the 5 years. So people don't really know where I'm from. They usually think I'm from, like, Germany, and that I learned French.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could pass as a German, especially with your beard.
I don't know if that'll show up on the podcast, but
No, that won't. It's just audio. We don't do video.
I've been growing it since, like, the COVID. I thought, like, now's the perfect time to kind of. I don't know if you guys seen the movie Castaway or any kind of like. Yeah, so it's like go full, like.
I actually, mine was, like, a lot longer. I had mine, like, down to, like, somewhere around here at one point. But I had to take it off. It was getting out of hand. Like, I kept getting food stuck in there. It was like, it's a whole thing every time. You know, it's like it's just like, it'd be like I'd eat something, and, like, the problem is land culture. We eat a lot of greasy food. So, like, I just have, like, oil, like, a whole side of my face would just shine.
Every time he ate, he'd have to go wash his face.
Like, it's a whole problem. So I'm like, now I'm like, you know what? I just gotta trim it off, and then I'll just let it grow back. This is like a couple of weeks ago now, but it's growing back already, and I'm like, same problem all over again. But it is what it is. I don't know. So what have you been up to with COVID, since COVID seems to be the main topic?
Yeah, so I've been kind of like, wow, I was trying, like, to entertain, because so I started my I was working kind of like as an apprentice in my final year. Mm-hmm. So my company was paying for my studies, giving me, like, a monthly salary, and I was for one semester I basically mostly studied, except for on vacations I would work at the company. And the second semester I would work fully. So the second semester started, I started working full time, and COVID hit, Actually, I kind of expected it. It was funny. I was watching like all like the numbers coming from China, and a month before everything closed in France, I started buying like canned food, and I was telling my friends like, we're gonna be inside for quite a while, and they told me like, no, you're crazy, like it's not gonna happen or whatever. Anyways, comes the COVID situation. I'm living with two roommates here from Norway, and they go back to their own country, and I'm stuck alone in a huge and really nice apartment. But it was kind of for 2 months. I was trying to figure out like I can't go to work. I can't see people pretty much. Like I saw one or two friends, but like illegally during the. I don't know if I should be saying this, but anyways,
no one there is going to this, are they?
Well, anyways, and but it doesn't matter. And I like I tried, so I did a bunch of things. I did this challenge where I was learning Norwegian. So I spoke like, I did a minute of Norwegian every single day on a video on my Instagram. And there was this big YouTuber. I don't know if you've heard of him. He does languages. His name is Lao Shu. Anyways, he has like 1 million subscribers. He started the challenge of like, just take a language, speak it for a minute a day, and record yourself on Instagram and post it. And he said, hey, by the way, I think you did the challenge really well. We'd like to select you as the winner of the challenge and give you free like Norwegian lessons. So I did that half the time. Half the time, I don't know. I played classical guitar as a kid, and I quit after high school. I kind of just got tired of it. I had to do these exams every single year. Got really tired of it, and I picked up guitar again for the first time in 5 years. So I've basically playing guitar a lot when I was bored, and I did that for 2 months. Then things started opening back up again here in France, not like in Ontario, I guess. Like we could go outside soon. Like after a few weeks, we could go to cafes and bars, and everything went back to normal. And now we can even travel. So during the COVID, it was only like 2 months, but during those 2 months, I was just trying to keep myself entertained. I had work from 9 to 5, but working at home, and it was kind of tough.
Oh yeah, I find it hard to focus. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Hard to, like, just to focus on like one, like especially in my house. Like there's 5 people in my house all the time, all the time. All the time.
Go away.
The problem is I share a room with him too. So like, if I'm trying to like, because I was still in school when COVID started back in March, and I had assignments to do. I had exams coming up in a month.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my, how am I going? Like, right. So it was like trying to study and everything. Like they're like watching movies and like nothing. Like, cause everyone stopped working essentially. No one's going to school anymore. I'm just like, I gotta get this done. I gotta pass. I gotta graduate. Like, it was the first month and a bit was challenging. It was very, very challenging. But ever since I'm done school, I finished in April, like the last week of April. So it's been like 2 months of like really trying to figure it out now, of like what to do. And like in my case, when I was in high school, actually when I was in elementary school, I picked up the saxophone.
Okay.
And a couple.
That was like in grade 7 and 8, or
yeah. And then in high school, I was a band kid as well, so I picked that up. And then I mean, in this room we have like 3 guitars, like 1 acoustic, 1 flamingo, 2 electric. There's a keyboard over there, like, and then there's like a trumpet under my bed and a saxophone under my bed. So like, or no, I think they're in the closet actually. So like stuff like that like, I don't know. In my case, I haven't touched any of that stuff because like, I don't know. I feel like, because for me it's very addicting. Like once I get into it, that's it. That's my life for like till I die kind of thing. Like I remember when I was in grade 8, I wanted to get into a high school here in Ontario that is very specific for music. I'm sure you know what high school I'm talking about. But so I started practicing to get into that school.
Well, they're like an arts school.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So I tried to get into that, and I remember going into their orientation. Like, in order to go into it, they could only take saxophone players. They could only take 6. There was 43 of us in that room, and I was like, "That is crazy."
Yeah.
Like only 6, and there were 43. Like I'll never forget. And I remember having to go into the audition, and I remember one of the guys on the panel was a saxophonist, like by profession. Like that's what he did for a living. I'm like, perfect, great. That was exactly what I'm doing wrong. So I remember playing it. I think I played Pink Panther or something like that. And then I had to play like 2 or 3 scales forward, backwards a couple of times, and like with varying speeds. And I remember, and then the guy walked up to the piano and he played something, and he's like, "Can you play it back to me on your instrument?"
Mm-hmm.
I remember in that moment, I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." I had never practiced that, and I remember I did it, and he goes, "That was perfect." And I go, "Great." And they're like, "That's all. We'll get back to you." And I walked out that door, and I'm like, "Okay." So I remember I messed up at the end of the song. I played the scales fine, and I nailed the piano part. I'm like, okay, so I think I'm fine. Like, like I think I'm good, right? And then I remember I got this little envelope telling me that unfortunately there wasn't enough room in the program for me, but to try again next year. And then I remember I went to
you basically got a call back.
Yeah, for next year. But I remember I was like, forget it. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And then I went to high school, and then I switched high schools, and I went to another
Which
high
school? Do you mind? You can bleep
yeah,
it out, I guess.
I'll bleep it out. Okay. So I went for a year, and then I switched to and at this school,
which is really common, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, actually, not really. Most people end up.
Okay.
But when I switched to my new high school, I found out that the director of music used to be the director for the high school I wanted to go to. Used to be the music director for this school. And I was like, really? That's interesting. And the music teacher there, he was amazing. I mean, this guy was like, I don't even know how to describe him. Like, he was like, I want to have him on the podcast. He was he would do some things and describe certain moments in music that to this day I am just I'll think about, like, man, like, I'll never be like him.
Yeah.
He was so good at it. And like, I remember this one time we were playing this jazz piece, and he walks up to the drummer because he was a percussionist, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna play the drums for us." And we all go, "Okay." And he goes, "Guys, no matter what, keep playing." And we go, "Okay, sure." And he starts playing like the normal drum beat, and then it turns into like a disco style drum beat. But we keep playing because he told us to keep playing. We finish the piece, and we all go, "Sir, can we play it like that? I like it way better." Like, the piece sounds way better with like a disco vibe. And he goes, no, we're playing what's on paper. But like, he would do things like that would just like total curveball. I remember this one time we were like practicing something, and he turns and looks at all of us like, "Okay, all of you drop this note down in this bar in this measure in this moment to like 3 notes down, just everybody." And we're like, okay. And we do it, and then he's like, "Okay, that sounds better, keep going." But like, he would like do like little changes like that, like, but like, I don't know how he did it. Like, he just look at it and be like, "No, this is wrong. Let's do it like this," or like, "Let's do this," or let's like certain things that I'm like, you have to have like extensive musical knowledge on. He would pull like all these like crazy things on us like that, and he was obsessed with Spider-Man. I'll never forget that. Like, you'd walk into his office, there'd be like posters and like little stuff, and like.
So was I when we were in elementary school.
Oh, I know, but I mean, this is high school.
Yeah, I know. I'm kidding.
And he's
an adult.
He's a grown adult. But like, we'd walk in and like stuff down, like everybody, like it'd be like, it was crazy. He now actually is the music director for the high school I wanted to get into. He's actually there now, and I was like, well, I guess I was taught by him, so I guess I got the same level of education anyway. But,
yeah, I guess it's a lot of the times people think you have to go. I think they did like this study where they saw like the people who got admitted into Harvard but chose to go to any other university.
Yeah,
had the same success in life as the people who went to like just Harvard. So it's like the fact like just the education you get at the place isn't as important as like getting like it's just the fact that you get admitted and you're around people who are like really at the top level and all of that, like
for sure, yeah. But I think you also have to take into account like the prestige that Harvard gives, right? Like, I went to Harvard, right? You see that on a resume. Oh, this is a little, like, I'm sure there's there's that level when someone's interviewing you, like, so it's like, I went to this university and someone like, or I went to a community college and this other guy's like, I went to Harvard.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure that outweighs a lot of times, right? Like, I remember I had a teacher in college, actually. Because I was like failing his class, and he's like, look, I just want you to know, it's like, you're gonna pass my class. That's not what I'm worried about. I want you to know that never in my entire life have I heard of someone asking for your GPA after school. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah. He's like, I've seen people die over this. He's like, but I've never. He's like, especially in this field, he's like, never has anyone ever asked for your GPA. And I was like, are you for real? He goes, yeah. He's like, because from the moment you say hi and how you say hi, they know if you're qualified for this job or not. And I go, what do you mean? He's like, are you friendly? Are you nice? Did you smile? And he's like, I'm sure you're a little nervous. He's like, but if you're confident enough to say hi to someone, he's like, you're set for this job. Because that's all it takes. You have to be able to confront people you don't know and be like ready in that moment to do a job, essentially. And I was like, wow, I had never thought of it like that.
You're just like, I do this, like, this is normal to me.
Yeah. Yeah, like the only time I've seen people actually ask for my grades is either it depends actually on the country as well, but like also if you go to like a next degree, like if you go from a bachelor's to a master's, or if you go from Algonquin to a bachelor's, or they might ask for your grades for your studies. And they might ask if you go to like a really, really competitive company, like if you want to work as a programmer for Google, they could ask for your grades. But other than that, like your GPA, other than that, I've never heard of it happen, because like you said, there's so many more important things that they want from you than your marks.
Yeah, like I mean, like there's what is it? I have a professor who he got this guy to come in. He's a psychologist. He came to talk to us, and he was telling us, we all talk about IQ. He's like, but does anyone know what EQ is? EQ. I don't know what is EQ. like equal audio levels. Like, what are you talking about here? He goes, emotional intelligence. He's like, very few people have emotional intelligence, and that's what the world needs more of. He's like, we need to teach people how to be emotional. And we're like, but that's a distraction. And he goes, people, like, he's like, you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you lack certain social skills, what good are you? Because if you don't have like certain like social skills, like you're not a good communicator, you're not a good listener, you're not a good, and he's like, and these are all the things employers are looking for. So he's like, if they ask if you were like the top 1% of your class, clearly you didn't have any friends in school, like, because all you did was.
I mean, it depends on the case, but yeah, there's some truth to that. And I think that I actually read a really interesting thing the other week, which was, everyone talks about IQ and it's like it's such an important measure, but they actually did a study, and like IQ might be like the biggest lie we've ever heard of, because the actual IQ test up until, how it goes, like you have below average, average, and then above average. And everyone up until the average, the test is actually really good at predicting like where you'll be placed in life, kind of.
Yeah.
Like it can predict if you have like some mental issue that you're born with that might lead you not to pursue certain careers.
Yeah.
But after, like, everyone who's like above average or even gifted on all these gifted tests, it doesn't predict how much money you'll make. It doesn't predict much about where you'll be in life.
For sure.
Like it can predict, I guess, some things, but generally, like, when they look at just the money you make in life, IQ has nothing to do with it. So that's where I read the other day. So I think that you're right. Like, there's so many forms of intelligence. You have people smarts, street smarts, that people don't necessarily think about.
For sure, yeah. Like, actually, now you mentioned that, I remember this. I don't know if you had to do it, and I don't know, he didn't have to do it, but I had to do it when I was in Canada. We take a class called Civics and Careers.
Yeah,
remember this, right?
I did it
when I was in careers. We had to take this test that would tell us where we would end up in life to the point of death. But it's just answering questions. Okay, Stefan, get this. Apparently, I'm gonna die at the tender age of 94 in Moscow, Russia. How I got to Moscow, Russia, I have no idea. But like that was the answer, and then
what kind of BS test is this?
I have no idea, but like it was the most bizarre. Like, but there are people like because you had to put in like your address and like the city you live in, right? But like based on answering quite like some people stayed in the same city and died in the same city.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I got another guy. There was another girl I think in our class who she ended up in Australia. Like, but we were like the only two outliers. You're like, what's going on? And he goes, and our teacher goes, well, based on your answers is what you got. And it was like questions like, say you had to like, I don't know, it was like, you have a job for a promotional, like a promotion, but it means you have to work an extra 3 hours a day. Would you take it? I was like, sure. I mean, if I'm making more money, why do I, like this is what I'm doing anyway. Like it's not like I have anything else to do. So I was like, yeah, sure. And he's like, based on your reaction and how you answer certain questions, I can't remember the name of this test, but it was like that, but it was like 150 questions. And somehow I ended up there. I died in Moscow, Russia at the tender age of 94.
I don't trust any of these kind of tests. Like I don't know.
No, like not to say that you should, but I found that so funny, and like it's been like 6 years, and I'm still laughing about it. You don't even
speak Russian.
No, I know, but it's been like 6 years, and I'm still laughing about it. Like that's how off it was.
Maybe because of this test, when you're like 94 years old, you'll like regret never moving to Moscow, Russia. So you'll move to Moscow, Russia, and then because you're 94, you'll simply just like die there.
The cold hit me, you know. Actually, you know what? Apparently, Canada's capital is colder than the capital of Russia.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did a study on it.
No, what was it? I think it was like a year or two ago, where a study came out where apparently we have colder temperature than they do.
Canada's really cold.
We are the coldest capital on Earth. It used to be Moscow, Russia, and now it's Canada.
Yeah. I know, like, you know, I have a lot of friends in Norway, like my roommates, and in Norway, you have less sunlight than in Canada. Like, you could have certain days during the winter where there's like no sun, pretty much.
Yeah.
But the cold is almost never minus 30.
Yeah, I know. No, like minus 30. What are you talking? We got like minus 40.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Minus 30 is like a joke. We're looking at minus.
From minus 26 down is like normality.
It's crazy. Yeah. There was a day where I remember, actually, like it's like 2 winters ago.
Mm-hmm.
It got to like it was like minus 40 something.
We broke a record.
But I remember with the windshield, it was like minus 53. And I was like, and they're talking about on the news, like, you know, like frostbite warning and like, don't go out if you don't have to. I'm like, guys, I have to go to school. I'm paying for this. So I went to school, and like, I remember I got there and only like 10 of us showed up. And our teacher was like, guys, I respect that you guys showed up, but I think you should go home. But we're like, what about the rest of our classes? She's like, I'll email the other teachers so they know that you're not coming. Just go home. And then I'm like, I literally just bust an hour to get here. You can't send me home.
But that's like the biggest, like the happiest news, like the best news you can get as a kid was I remember like during the winter walking up to the bus stop. Yeah. And the bus is late 5 minutes, and then you look at all your friends and you're like, is it going to be late another 10 minutes? Yeah. And you're all like crossing your fingers, and then it doesn't show up, and you just like run back home, turn on the TV, and all these like cartoons that you never get to watch, you can finally get to watch them and just like chill and that was like the best
day.
The snow day.
The snow day. I remember now they're like so sophisticated about it, man. Like now when the buses are canceled, parents will get like a text or an email about it.
Yeah.
Like,
it'll be like all buses are canceled.
It wasn't like a waiting, and like even the news will announce it. It wasn't like, I had to wait 15 minutes to find out.
Yeah. Now it's just like you wake up, you can check their website, and they're like, yeah, the buses are at risk right now, so canceled.
And Victor, what are you up to?
Currently, well, I just finished grade 11.
Okay.
Still in high school.
You're lucky it wasn't grade 12 this year, because you would have missed out on like everything.
I graduation. Missed out on a lot though, because I'm because what I'm thinking about going into the same college my brother went to become an MRT, which is a medical radiation technologist. It's a mouthful. So I have to take a bunch of sciences. And I didn't, you know how in sciences they do a lot of labs and like on hand stuff?
Yeah.
I missed out on like all of that. So what I was mainly doing at home online was just like creating formulas, but never getting to execute what I created. So that was kind of like, the things I missed. Also like dissection tasks and stuff.
Yeah, so that's his story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you were gonna say?
I was just gonna add one thing. It was that I think that in at least and people keep talking about this more and more. At least when I was in high school, but definitely college is very, very underrated because a lot of people go to university and study something and then can't find a job and pay a lot of money for it. Whereas in college, you do something that's very practical. And
I remember.
No, I've had more people tell me, go if you like for certain careers, they're like go to college. If you go to university for this, we won't hire you. If we have a college person and a university student, and you both took the same thing, we're gonna take the college person.
It's because college, like they put you into the field.
Yeah.
Like in my case, I think I did something like 500 hours in a place where they do that, right? So like I don't walk out like only with theory. I have practical knowledge too because I worked over 500 hours in said like place, right? And it's not like, and that's the same with like everything, right? Like even when I was
they'd rather experience.
Yeah, like you get so much like on hands experience in the actual job, but in university it's all theory, it's all textbook, right? I mean, and co-op is an option, but like you have to go out of your way to find it. It's not part of the prime, and it's not mandatory. It's optional. Like in college, all of those practicums, that's what they call practicum or placement. They're all mandatory. You have to do them. Graduate. Yeah. So because of that, you're getting all this hands-on stuff, and I guess it just shows that like practical and physical experience in said workforce is more valuable than all the textbooks and all the theory you can possibly learn about it.
Yeah, and a lot of people like are kind of afraid of co-op. Like, will I find a job? Will I find a placement? But at the same time, like you're gonna have to look for a job when you graduate. You might as well start doing it now and learn how to get like how to send your CV, how to network, how to find a job in any means possible.
Yeah.
Then wait 4 or 5 years to start doing that.
Actually, in my case, I didn't have to do any of that. The college does it for you.
Oh,
you send them like your resume and your cover, all that stuff. And they say they give you they send you like a list over email. They name the top 10 areas you want to work in, and we go okay, and you put like I don't know, like childcare, or like I want to work in a school, or I want to work in I don't know, in like with immigration, or I want to work with drug addicts, or I want to work with homelessness, or like domestic with families, like stuff like that. And then based on that list, they'll place you somewhere, and
it's actually really nice.
Yeah, and then they go and they like, and the other thing too is like this program has been going on for so long that the college has made partners within the community, so they're able to like call people up and they're like, hey, I'm looking to place a student here, and they'll be like, yeah, sure, no worries. So it's like
finding the placement here isn't as much as a struggle.
Yeah, because they do it for you.
Yeah, like in my case, if I go become an MRT, I have to do a placement in a hospital. Because I'd be working with like patients and stuff like that.
Are there a lot of placements for MRTs? Like, how many per hospital do you think there are?
I haven't actually checked that because I'm still in grade 11.
Yeah.
But like next year, I'll actually look into.
I'm sure more. Like there's a lot because like think about it, like even X-rays. We're talking about like X-rays.
We're doing like X-rays, having to put radiation into cancer patients.
So like
also having to like examine X-rays for doctors and working a little bit in pathology as well.
So there's got to be like anywhere between 10 to 12 X-ray machines per hospital, maybe even more than that. And there's like 3 hospitals in this city alone. So it's like what? Like that's like what? 36? 36 alone just in this city. Wow. Where are we X-raying so many people?
Well, if somebody breaks their foot and you need to determine,
no, I know,
they need surgery.
I know, but you see, because there's 36. Say they take, I don't know, even hypothetically, if they're to take, I don't know, 40 students, they could do it.
Yeah, even for COVID, I think you have to CT scan the lungs to make sure, like, even after you test, to make sure that it actually is COVID, you have to scan the lungs. So
it's very similar.
Have you seen those X-rays though?
No, not really. I've seen some of them. They look really weird. But,
no, like, cause there are these pictures going around of like the normal one, and then like after COVID, and the lungs look just distraught, man. Like it looks like they've been through something. Like it's horrible. Yeah. It's genuinely horrible. I was like, man, how do people's lungs just go away? And I'm like, man, that's horrible. I think we should wrap up because we're over the time now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, there's gonna be a lot of cutting. So this has been a Two Latin Brothers podcast. Also, everything's always in the description. If you want to shout out anything, now's the time.
Okay, sure. So you can follow me at Stefan You Can. It's actually the same name as my YouTube channel right now that I started about a year ago. So it's just Stefan, Stefan, and then You Can. So that's it.
Everything will be linked in the description. Go check them out. Go check us out on Twitter and Instagram. Everything's always in the description. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome.